Welcome back to episode 16 of the One More K podcast. Today it's just the two of us, Ned Phillips in Singapore and Marcus, my name, in San Francisco, California. How are you doing, Ned?
I am good, my friend. It's funny because we started just the two of us and we're like, oh, soon we'll get a guest. And we've had some great guests and we're going to have lots more. And today it's like, wow, it's like back to OG. It's just the two of us hanging out. So pretty fun.
I was looking forward to it, actually, just to catch up with you directly and just a one-on-one. We had Sam Harvey and then we had Jerry. And there's going to be a lot of guests coming up in the next few weeks. I think our schedule is getting quite packed, super exciting. But I think also it's good to check in and kind of step back. There's so many news that has been happening. When I prepped for this podcast episode, I couldn't stop filling out our flow chart. But first and foremost, it was your birthday, Ned. So happy birthday from all of us in the One More K community.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that.
You celebrated in Ned style, which is running your age in kilometers.
Well, yes and no. So you are absolutely correct. I was 57, or I am 57, am. My drop at the end of this show is about age, so you'll see exactly how old I am, but I'm 57. I did run my age in kilometers, but I started this age in kilometers when I was 40. So when I was 40, on my birthday, I was having some beers, or just before my birthday, I was like, what? I love running. But at the time, I was running quite a lot, and 40K didn't seem enough. So that's why I came up with that. It started as 100 minus my age, 40, which equals 60K, which felt like quite a long run, and it was. I was more of a marathoner than ultra. And I just kept doing that. But the inverse has happened. As I've got older, I've run further. So when I was 40, 40K didn't seem enough. Now I'm 57. If I did 100 minus 57, which is 43, 43 didn't seem enough. So a few months ago, I had done that every birthday up until I was 57. So when I was 56, I ran 44K. But I've been running a lot more recently. And it just struck me, I'm going to change it. Because originally I'd thought, if it's 100 minus your age, when you're 80, 100 minus 80 is 20. That's achievable. When you're 88, it's 12. But I don't want to do achievable. I don't want to do that. We're gonna find out. Marcus, do you think it's possible? Can I keep running my age all the way to 100?
Of course, if you take right nutrition, you will be fine.
Lecka
Nutrition.
Powering you forever.
I got to say that this is all sponsored by Lecka, of course. I neglect those comments sometimes. It's all about the flow. No, I think it's exciting. I'm sure you can do it. Especially this weekend, something else is happening. What are you going to do this weekend?
I am going to run. So 2 months, actually it was exactly 3 months ago, Marcus, because I checked, it was early February. I like these ideas of what's called adventure runs. You just invent some adventure in your head and you just go and do it, right? It's not a race. It's not so I invented this idea that I'd run 100K to a park run. So I gave myself 14 hours. I started at park run, which in Singapore is in East Coast. I did a 100K loop. And as Marcus, as you know, I gave myself 14 hours. Park run starts at 7:30 a.m. So I left at 5:30 p.m. Friday, 14 hours. As you know, Marcus, I arrived back at 7:25 a.m., 13 hours, 55 minutes later. You were there and you helped me. I then had it was more than 5 minutes, to be fair. It was 15. And then you helped me run 28 minutes and 41 seconds, which I was incredibly pleased with. But of course, with my ultra running brain, what's the next step after running 100K to a 5K race? It's running 100 miles to a 5K race. So starting on Friday, the 3rd of May, I will be leaving from the same spot at 7:30 a.m. I'm giving myself 24 hours, which, I've done that before, but still it's not bad, 24 hours. It's like backyard timing, backyard's 100 miles in a day. To be back, and can I break 28:41? Can I make it back in time? Who knows? But that's what I'm doing.
Singapore is not that big. So 100K, I think you managed to pretty much run around the island. But for 100 miles, what's your course like?
Well, interestingly, I didn't quite run around. I ran around like 2/3 of it. So I will do the same loop. So all the way along the East Coast. This is a little technical if you're not from Singapore, but forgive for 20 seconds. All the way along the East Coast, the same, up past Changi, up to the very north, up by Woodlands. And then I'm going to go out towards the Kranji, where the people who cycle out into the West Coast Kranji countryside come all the way down there, and then go out to the very far west point called Tuas in Singapore. That's the only double back. There's like a 12-kilometer road out there and back. And then I'll swing around Sentosa, and that'll bring me, I've checked, approximately 158K back to the start, and then I'll do 1K up and down and be done. Yeah. But that will be a
And what's your estimate this time for your 5K time? Last time I think we had a conversation about sub 30, not sub 30, and you managed to do amazing sub 30. That was great. What is this time? What do you think?
Well, I have a dear friend, Alan Grant, one of my dearest friends. He was a non-believer last time. He was like, no way, pal. You'll never break 30 minutes. This time he's like, I have to be a believer. So we did 28:41. I have Roberto DeVito pacing me this time, who is you're a real runner. He was a 107 guy back in the day, half marathon, like genuine. Of course, we don't need pace this time, but he's very kindly agreed to pace me. And I have to shoot for 28:40, obviously, right? I just have to go for it. I have to go for 28:40.
Okay. Good luck. I wish I could be there. That was very fun last time to see you suffer so much. Like you were really like slurching on the ground, but you made it happen. It was amazing. Good job. No, amazing.
Thank you.
Great. This is going to be a good show. We have lots on the deck here. We're going to cover a lot of the races that happened this weekend, last weekend, all over the world. We have some news from, of course, UTMB as usual. We're going to have some other parts of stats, and we're going to discuss the great Jim Walmsley documentary that just came out a few days ago. So a few more things happening, of course, wrapped up by your drop. Let's get right into it. We had a busy weekend. I think we should start with Courtney's amazing race in Japan. She ran the Mt Fuji race, which is part of the World Trail Majors, the new series that came out. She dominated that race like I have not seen someone doing this in a long time. Finished in 19 hours and 21 minutes, 4 hours better than the next woman, third overall. And I think that was just what an amazing effort.
19 hours, 21 minutes, and 22 seconds. In 2018, the great Dylan Bowman won UTMF. Are you ready? In 19 hours, 21 minutes, and 21 seconds. 1 second quicker than Courtney's time. So if this was 2018, Courtney and Dylan would have been sprinting up. I mean, I think that all the stats are amazing and everyone can read it. The guy who came second, when asked what he thought about his race, he said, I think I was put here to learn from Courtney.
Yeah. Just to say, the first man, Guimin Deng, he finished from China. He finished in 19 hours and 10, so only 11 minutes ahead of Courtney. And the second man, the second overall, was Guidu Jin from China, finished in 19 hours and 20, which is like a minute ahead of Courtney. So
apparently they were Apparently Courtney caught the second place dude, and they were sprinting it off, right? And 11 minutes behind the winner. Crazy.
Absolutely impressive. My Twitter feed went crazy about this, and I think for good reasons. That's a very great effort.
There is this sense. So there's these formulas of when Paula Radcliffe, I hope most of you know who Paula Radcliffe was, the great British marathoner, when women's marathon times were around the low 220. So the world record was like 223, something like that, or 220. And men's was like 205, 206. There was like a percentage that women would be behind men on average in races. So you could pretty much set your clock by the percentage. And when Paula dramatically, in I think early 2000s, dropped the London marathon record to like, I think it was 217, I don't remember. She gapped that percentage, right? What Courtney has done in ultra, because if you look at the second place woman, 4 hours behind, so that's like 10, 15%. It was something between 10 to 15%, I don't remember. And that was, because physiologically, men clearly, have physiological advantages in running. Well, in ultra, The further we go, that percentage decreases. And Courtney is ripping up the playbook because like she was less than like, what? Not even 1%, a fraction of a percent behind. She's going to win a big race one day, man. Like she's won big races, 200 miles, but she's going to win a race that people don't expect it.
For sure. There's more to come. So I'm like, very curious to see what she's going to do later this year. Also Tour de Géant again. Big shout out to that race she's going to do.
She's doing Tour de Géant?
That's the rumor. Yeah.
She could win that outright.
Well, Francois Den is also running it. So
okay. Okay, maybe not.
Let's see. But I'm curious how that will play out. 200 milers are coming. And I think more than many men, actually, she is much more equipped for 200 milers. I think 100-mile men's I haven't seen many stepping up to 200 miles, but now Courtney really has been pushing with races before above the 100 miles. So she got it.
If any of you haven't watched The Source, what a film, right? Like, because it shows, Courtney, of course, was a teacher and, she wasn't a professional runner, but she was a cross-country skier. And that film, when she does a 200-mile, I think the Tahoe race, where she was leading with only 20 miles to go, you can just see into the soul of Courtney. If you want to see why Courtney's so good, I mean, she's obviously a beautiful human soul person, but they meet her coach from when she was a cross-country skier for her state. And the coach was like, this woman is a warrior. Like, this woman can suffer, like scary. And 200 miles, the ability to suffer is super high. And she has that beautiful blend of warrior, gentle.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I don't think any man's going to be running a 200-mile race who wants to win it. If Courtney's there, they're going to be like, holy crap, I'm going to get torched.
Moving on from Japan to China, we had the Golden Trail World Series event happening in Siguniangshan, China, which was only 22 kilometers short or long, depends how you see it, with 1,500 meters of gain. Interesting series. The Golden Trail World Series doesn't get much attention like maybe the World Trail Majors or UTMB, but it's also a significant part of the race circus where, it's short, it's hard, it's steep. This time, the female were also quite well placed with Joyce Nero from Kenya winning in 2025, followed by Maud Mattis from Switzerland, who I think has been around the block for many years. And then the American Grayson Murphy came third. On the male side, another Kenyan won, so a double Kenyan win, Patrick Kimnego, who came in first in 1 hour 59, followed by Elosini from Morocco and Daniel Pattis from Italy. I looked up the podcast, the live streaming actually of this event, and it was actually very exciting. I'm quite impressed that finally was able to watch a Chinese race live and to get an idea of what's going on and you can finally get the results. Maybe remember I've been ranting about the difficulties of getting Chinese results, but this one was well done. The race course looked amazing. The fans at the course were really into it. Music, fireworks, like line dancing, everything. Looked really cool. And it's
great to see. Yeah. It's great because I know your rant, you can't even get results, and it's true. But now we're getting, live streamed. I don't know if you saw Ryan Blair, obviously the guy that helps, there's a pretty huge amount into trail running. He showed some photos from the race a few weeks ago that St. Meyer did. There were like rock bands in the hills. There was it was amazing. And I think it's great that the West will get to see that trail running in China had this incredibly difficult moment, a few years ago when many people died in that race. But, the race obviously had to kind of the industry had to reassess. But what they're doing today, it is great to see and booming. And as you say, fans, I think the world better watch out. There's some great Asian racers and athletes coming.
And also interesting enough, I think it's very clear with the Golden Trail World Series, they put out the prize money very clearly on the website, which, if you look at other race circus websites, it's not easy to find, but they say $300,000 across all races to be distributed, $20,000 for the winners, So it's there clearly is financial gain that is communicated very clearly.
Do you think the fact that two Kenyan winners, it is a, if you're coming out of Kenya as a great runner, You have to be realistic. You have to go where the money is. We are not seeing that on the other series. And as you say, we had 2 Kenyan winners in the men and the women's race. Do you think that is part of that reason why we had 2 Kenyan winners there? Because the money is incredibly clear and pretty. I mean, we're not earning football money, but it's $20,000 is nothing to laugh at either.
I mean, Warren Buffett says follow the money, so I would argue that human incentives in this case are quite clear. I do think the Kenyans like those shorter distances. So 22 kilometers is something they like. I yet to see if they're going to go up into the 100 miles more. I mean, at least in our radar, we haven't seen anyone really coming out the last months and years.
But if you, okay, so let's just hang on this Warren Buffett thing for a minute. Follow the money. You mentioned 20,000. I don't know if they got exactly 20,000, but if we look at Patrick Kimgainan, he did a 22-kilometer race in 2 hours and got 20K, right? So you got 10K an hour. There's no 100-mile race that's paying you 10K an hour. It's just not, right? So why would they go up to the 100K stuff, right? 100-mile stuff.
Yeah.
Doesn't make sense yet. It might over time, of course. Yeah, there you go.
So anyone watching on YouTube, you can see more than 300,000 euros, so pardon the currency, total of the prize money on the entire series, more than 20,000 euros total of the prize money on each Golden Trail World Series race, and more than 120,000 euros shared by the top 20 of the overall ranking. So it's about the ranking. The series moves from country to country. This was the second race, so they can see the ranking online. And then at the end of the year, you have the final, and then the prize money pot will be shared. And you can see it's not significant, and it's good to see there is financial gains being shared.
So I'm not Marcus. Let's riff on this for a minute. Can you Google if you go to the UTMB site, the UTMB show. And I don't want to pick on UTMB. And honestly, we've had some good interactions with UTMB. Honestly, guys, you're trying hard and you've reached out to us a lot, which we super appreciate it. I'm just interested. What is the prize money on the UTMB? And if we go to their website, now, do we find it?
Yeah. So if I just Google UTMB prize money, the first 3 results are websites that are not UTMB, but then the third research result is UTMB's own site, and I have to really now. Here I can show you. This is interesting. Now let's do some.
Let's go.
Let's show you.
Let's do it.
So it's under regulations. So it's under regulations, and then you have all these, I guess, call it FAQs, drop-down menus, and then only number. I don't know what is now, 15 or 20. Here's prize money. And then you can see.
Okay, what is it? Click.
You can see that for UTMB, CCC, and OCCC, there's 10,000 euros for first, 5,000 euros for second, 3,000 for third, 1,500 euros for fourth, and so on and so on. So basically, yeah, that's for, I believe, only the race in Mont Blanc.
For UTMB, see, look. Again, UTMB guys, if you're listening, I hope you do listen to us. You may not. We super appreciate that you're reaching out, Chad. Guys, come on, sort it out. 1,500 is not even the airfare for fourth. It's not even the airfare for fourth. Like if you now we assume if you're fourth, you're getting sponsorship from Hoka and Coros and one day Lecka, but not right now. We don't quite have that cash. But 1,500 for fourth, I know you're not making money. I understand it, but also your athletes can't be left. Like it is super important, Oh, guys, 1,500 euro for fourth.
All right, talking about UTMB, next race was the Canyons endurance race here just around the corner in California, Auburn, 100 miles. We had someone called Canyon himself, Canyon Woodward, win the race. He's a namesake of the race, 18 hours and 54 minutes. Nicholas Lightbody from Canada and Nike Orr were second and third, respectively. Eleanor Horton won the 100 miles. On the 100K, worth mentioning Katie Schide, who is living in France but American. She really won the 100K women's race there, dominated it with 9 hours and 10 minutes, and pushed also her to 6th overall. So also she was really strong in the overall field as a 6th in the 100K. So,
okay, two things, Marcus. So first of all, you cannot make this stuff up. Canyon Woodward wins the Canyon races in the woods. I mean, you literally can't make that up, right? Like that is like, was this kid born for this stuff? That's wild. Do you have the women's results? I don't know if you have them. The reason I ask particularly is we gave Courtney Love. We gave Courtney Love. Courtney Love, the musician, Courtney Love. Look at us. How good are we? We gave Courtney some love, lots of love for her amazing performance relative to the men. Now, I don't want to pick on Tim Tollefson. Tim Tollefson, if you guys follow Ultra a lot, is a legend, a true legend Ultra guy, still doing it. Katie beat him. Katie beat actually a friend of mine, Salomon Westin, the great Salomon, who is one of Asia's top kind of expat runners and has finished Hong Kong 4 Trails. Well, not just finished, almost won. I've been chatting with Salomon quite a bit recently, and he sent me, I've got it here, he sent me the overall, a guy called Rod, I have it here, a guy called Rod Farvad finished in 8:44. This is 100K. Are you ready? So Drew Holman is good. Do you guys, you guys must know who Petter Engdahl is.
Yeah.
Petter Engdahl. Okay, he trains with Killian and he trains with John Albon in Norway, and I think he won CCC. Petter Engdahl went 8 hours, 55 minutes in third. Then there was someone in fourth, someone in fifth, in sixth, in 9 hours, 10 minutes. So I've got the results. Only 15 minutes behind was Katie Schide. Katie Schide was 15 minutes behind Petter Engdahl. And she beat Tim Tollefson by 10 minutes.
That is impressive.
This is, look, with no disrespect to UTMF and the runners there and the Chinese runners there, Petter Engdahl, Drew Holman, like Tim Tollefson, and Katie Schide is not just mixing it up. She was right there. Like, that is an astonishing effort from the ladies this weekend.
That's true. Really, 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 really strong. Which actually, as we say, usually, I mean, I think recently we've been saying we are more excited about the females battling it out than the males, to be honest. I think this year is a breakthrough of maybe Asian runners and female runners on the global stage. So very excited to see what's going to happen later this year as well.
So as an old guy, 57, as you guys know, like I grew up in an era and, women's sport was barely on TV. Anyway, we didn't have YouTube, so the TV was dominated by men playing sports, right? And and I think it's fair to say that I'm going to say the last 5-10 years has been revolutionary for women's sport, which is amazing, right? The Women's World Cup was amazing, huge viewerships, money's being paid, fantastic. But I'm going to say we're the only sport where women can win. Like, it's real. Like we are competing head to head. What a great time. Like, I think it's awesome. And, when you watch this stuff happening, man, I honestly, while I can get over Courtney's race because she's a legend, 15 minutes behind the top men in the world. Wow, it's wild. It's great to see. Like, so cool.
Talking about UTMB, talking about the viewership, there was an exciting announcement with UTMB World Series to partner with DAZN, DAZN, which is a large sport TV channel. And they are going to cover some of the UTMB races as a 2-year global broadcast partnership between UTMB and DAZN for 2024 and 2025. I think this actually is very big news. We've been talking about this for already some time. We talked about live streaming. We talked about mass participation online. I think this is a good test for UTMB and, of course, for DAZN to also check out how that works for them in terms of viewership. But I'm quite excited about this trend where things are going, and I'm very curious to see the numbers in the next few years' time, how that will change maybe the perception of UTMB in general.
You shouted out in our early few podcasts, we talked quite a bit about tech, what's changing, streaming. You had some really good thoughts about teams, how we could use stats, streaming. I think you're right. Like, look, it's not a secret, people. The world's going to YouTube, right? The world's going the ability to stream will, what we think is amazing today will feel old-fashioned in 10 years.
I think more importantly, even the part is like YouTube is something like you and I, we go to YouTube, we watch the races. We Google for it. We're actively seeking information. But
Sure.
let's say on ESPN or on DAZN, this other channel, now you see a channel. So people who are not usually exposed to this kind of sport, they see a logo, they see the sport. And so I think it opens up a completely new community of viewers out there who are not actively seeking this kind of sport, but who are now saying, oh, there's baseball, there's basketball, there's ultra trail running. Let's check it out. So I think you have more serendipity of new viewers where we just go online and we search for it and we find it if we want to. But now it's just like an app on a TV channel. I think that those eyeballs are new and they're super important for the sport.
Isn't it wild to think that people running 100 miles through the woods can be put on TV, right? There used to be this idea that, what? How can you watch a 100-mile race or a 100K race? It's not cool. Yet, and I think I mentioned the Speed Project last weekend, go and look at what the Speed Project did to people running 340 miles from LA to Vegas. If you're in America, Marcus, if you drive anywhere towards Vegas, you can feel how big and far and crazy that is. But they did it in a way that was modern, fresh. So I love to see this. You know, we have brought a sport that is really, you would think, what, you're going to watch people run all day? That's silly. And we found a way to bring it to people. It's amazing.
Another anecdote here, staying here with friends in San Francisco. My wife and I had a recent just sit in on Sunday night, turn on the TV, go to YouTube. The first search result or the search thing was Cocodona 250. Cocodona is like this very big race in Arizona.
I know it.
Just right, 250 miles through the state of Arizona. Amazing. And I'm like, oh, okay, this kind of change and do something different. Look at them. Now she was like, no, let's look at this. I want to see this. So we spent Sunday night watching the documentary of Cocodona 250. I'm like, wow, she's not necessarily the biggest trail runner, but for her to sit there and enjoy the documentary, I'm like, something has changed. Like this and the views, again, 500,000 views in a few days. Those numbers are significant.
Storytelling, Marcus, you said it before, storytelling. And what better story to tell than human suffering?
Yeah.
And I don't mean in a bad way, because there's a lot of bad human suffering, but in a running. You know what Sam Harvey told us? The guy that made his movie Breaking Point had never filmed running before. And the movie was, that film, you've watched Breaking Point. That film is beautiful. Beautiful. Yeah. Like, it has no relevance if you like running or not. It's a story. And I think that's what ultra transcends across to YouTube and everything. You don't need to know running. Like, Marcus, me and you could watch a 1,500 meter race and get super absorbed by it because you're a track guy. And we could be like, oh my God, 1,500 meters. And people are like, really? They're running around a track. Screw this shit. That's silly. But the transcendence to Cocodona or Speed Project or anybody can see it. And so I think uniquely ultra in this new social media world has a massive opportunity.
It's already a little shout out and a little primer. We're going to have one of those filmmakers joining our podcast rather soon. So I want to dig into this whole business model and this whole industry of filmmaking documentaries of trail running. I want to understand more what's actually going on there behind the scenes. Like there's every week, I feel now there are 2 or 3 videos released, at least an hour long. And like, there's something happening and I want to understand. So we're going to have a filmmaker coming on the show very soon, and we're going to dive into this topic. I feel like it's industry in itself now, what's going on there.
Just before they come on, I'll send to you. You'll know who Sally McRae, a yellow runner. She's called. She did 4 200 miles, and she had a filmmaker film all of them. He was a guy who didn't know running, a filmmaking student, and he was on her podcast, Choose Strong. By the way, guys, listen to Choose Strong. It's great. Sally McRae is an absolute animal. Adore her. And they spent 2.5 hours, Marcus. So maybe if you get a chance on a run, listen to Sally McRae talk to her young guy, 26, filmmaker, talking exactly about this. What is the opportunity in running filmmaking? Is it viable? Can you make money? What is it? It was a good listen.
Well, let's talk about the film that came out just a few, I think almost hours ago, but days ago, WALMSLEY. Jim Walmsley was featured in 1 hour 34-minute movie documentary powered by Wahoo and Hoka. Anyone out there who is keen to learn about Jim Walmsley, please go on YouTube. It's free. Watch it. It's covering the story from pretty much the last 3 years of Jim Walmsley's life, from moving to America to France to win a UTMB. That was, of course, the highlight of the movie. I watched it. I forced myself to watch it. I did the whole thing. The first round, I only watched 14 minutes because I was just getting a bit, tired of it. But then I said, you know what, I owe it to Jim. Let's kind of watch the whole thing. And I watched the whole thing. Ned, what do you think of this Walmsley documentary?
You are a better man than me. I made it to 10 minutes. Let's start. Jim's awesome. Okay. I don't know Jim, so I assume he's awesome. Jim has done all the hard things, right? He quirky kid, went in the army, and then his early trail running, he says it. He says, I'm going to win Western States. And he didn't 3 times. And people were crapping on him. First time he took a wrong turn. Second time he melted down in the heat. He ran without water. He took a lot. And Jim bounced back. So I have massive, massive respect. Like, Jim could have just walked away because people were just piling on him. He took a lot of heat in 2016, 17, 18, brash. And, ultra running is a sport where it's not like MMA where you're like, oh, I am going to kill you, that type of stuff, right? You're meant to be soulful and calm. And Jim came running his mouth, but he didn't run it in a bad way. He just said, look, I'm going to win, right? We all want to win, right? So I want to win, right? And look, clearly, and he moved to France, and with all love and respect for him, this is an example of how not to make a movie. This is an example of how to produce an advert for Hoka, who's awesome, and Wahoo, who's awesome, featuring an athlete who's awesome, but not tell it as a story. It felt like this force-fed, and again, this is not against Jim. Jim's awesome. This was not how you make a movie. I couldn't hack it 10 minutes in. I binned it. So I can't really comment on the movie, Marcus.
I mean, any movie is only as good as the movie maker, the people who hold the camera and edit it afterwards to bring out that personality and the character of the people featured in it. And for some reason, I don't think they did a good job with Jim. Like, he was not really relatable. He seemed more like a machine, which he might is. I just don't think so, but he might is. So I think that part was a bit disappointing. There was beautiful shots of Hoka shoes and very nice shots of Wahoo socks and this. I mean, great B clips for B-rolls for the brands. However, I think the highlight for me, to be honest with you, was to actually see Jim's girlfriend, now wife, I believe, Jessica, who was very relatable. Sure. I think she came across as a very genuine, very caring person. And to see what she's been going through with also moving to France, learning French, understanding the culture in the mountains, in this village, I think that was quite cool to see her, to see Francois, who also was featured in the film, very, again, super good friend of Jim. Those little side actors, I would call them, were really cool. But the story in itself was, dragged out, just mechanical almost, and I'm sure I enjoyed it.
Yeah, and look, Jim, I don't think Jim is cut out for social media world. He just perhaps doesn't have that style. Nothing else. Have you? So look, all respect to Jim. Yeah, even in the first 10 minutes, that picture of Jim with his Hoka shoes and his Hoka socks and, Hoka hat, the nice little clip of his hat. I'm like, guys, I know Hoka are great shoes, dudes. Like, I get it. Like, I get it. On the other side, who came second to Jim? One of my favorite athletes, the great Zach Miller, who I think is the Prefontaine of ultra, the wild man who I hope he doesn't get in a car, but the wild man of our sport, running out the front. If you've seen Billy Yang, who, if any of you are getting into trail running, you're listening to our podcast for the first time, or haven't watched much trail running, just put in Billy Yang. Like, Billy Yang is the filmmaker for our sport. Full stop. There's lots of other talented people, but who's the filmmaker for our sport? It's Billy Yang. Full stop. And he did a film called In Relentless Pursuit. Just 35 minutes of Zach. That is how you make a movie. Like, if you watch that movie and don't have strong feelings for Zach, you don't love this sport. So, nothing against Jim. Jim, we love you if you're listening. That film it was an advert. It was an hour and a half advert for Hoka. And there you go.
On the note of Hoka, so that got me thinking. I have 1.5 hours time to spare to watch this movie, so let's make the best time of it. So what do? I look into Hoka. And then my brain goes kind of in different directions, and I realized, oh, it's part of Decker's Shoes, and Decker's Shoes is a public company. Public company means I can find information on the web, and it means I can read financial reports, and I can understand a bit more about Hoka and Decker's in that sense. So did you know that actually Hoka was founded by two French guys, ex-Salomon employees, in 2009 in Annecy in France?
I did, because I listened to Carl Speed Goat Meltzer talk to Dylan Bowman and Carl, their first athlete, and the amazing story of the French guys trying to get Carl to wear their shoes. They couldn't get anybody because their shoes were silly. So yes, I have a decent understanding of the history via Carl Meltzer.
Good. They got acquired 2013, so only 4 years after starting, by the big American shoe company called Deckers. They also are famous for the UGG kind of shoes, I believe, and some other brands. I do think that probably Hoka had some financial issues at the time in order to cover inventory, so it's better to be acquired by a larger company, but this is my take on it. I didn't read it off the time. Do you know anything about why so fast being acquired?
I'll be honest. So there's me saying, I know about the history. I didn't know they were acquired in 2013. That's news to me.
Hoka is really smashing it. It's absolutely insane to see the financial data. I'm just going to give you one number here, is that sales in the last quarter, so Q4 2023, increased to $430 million in one quarter. So that's around 1.2 billion per year last year. It's a 21% increase, almost 22% increase compared to the previous quarter. So they're really growing. And if you read all about the financial report of Deckers, the holding company, they're positioning as Hoka as the number one brand in the portfolio and as the fastest growing brand in the portfolio. They are really investing into direct to consumer. So they have grown their online business by 50% in a quarter. So all these numbers are phenomenal. If anyone out there knows these markets, I was very impressed. And just to give you an idea now, if you would have bought $100 of Deckers stock in 2018, it would be worth $490 in 2023. If you would have bought the same time the NYSE, New York Stock Exchange index, for $100 in 2018, it's only worth $139. So Hoka, or Deckers, 5 times increase. The overall market only 1.4. So again, no financial advice here. We're not giving any financial advice. I'm just seeing these numbers. I mean, whatever we're saying here and trends and so on, I think it's all great. But if you see it black on white in the financial reports, you're like, oh wow, they are creaming it. And just last few bits here and bobs, which is interesting for me. What do you think does a CEO earn? Just out of curiosity.
So this is a game I play with my son. When somebody asks you for a number and they ask it with interest in their mind, it's either very low or very high. So he either gets $1 or $10 million. But I'm going to guess he currently gets, because I'm going to say he's a humble man, and I know I hope he's a humble man. I'm going to say the CEO of Hoka, so I either go low or high. I'm going to say he gets $100K a year.
1.2 million, which it's still okay. I think, again, I don't want to drive an anti-salary kind of campaign here. It's more like it's a multi-billion-dollar company, and I think it's justified. But I thought actually it would be more. So I thought it would be more, to be honest with you, because given the revenue and the income they're printing is $230 million in net profit. So it's a very profitable company.
It's outstanding. I mean, with all massive respect, these guys, when they launched that with these big shoes, people were like, "You're silly," and they spent years going nowhere. Literally, if you've read Shoe Dog, Phil Knight's fantastic book about his early days. Hoka is not as long as that, but when they wanted to sponsor Karl Meltzer, the owner of Hoka had to give him the shoes he was wearing as samples. He literally didn't have any other shoes. He literally, like Phil Knight, out of the back of a car to the juggernaut that is Nike, these French dudes, but massive respect. And, Marcus, I was on the MRT, the train, the subway here in Singapore. And again, I listen a lot to Karl Meltzer. He talked about being in an airport looking just at normal people walking around in Hokas. So I just kind of walked along the train in Singapore. There were a lot of people, normal people, not trail runners, wearing Hoka. And here's Marcus. I'm sure the numbers don't tell us this. How many people are buying Hoka for running and how many people are buying Hoka as everyday shoes? I'd love to know that.
Yeah, good question. I tried to find all these. There was also curiosity, different product lines of Hoka sales numbers. Couldn't find it. Tried to find the different regional sales. Couldn't see much. So yeah, if they talk about Hoka as a brand, they are mentioning ultra running, but more and more the word lifestyle comes up. And I think we talked about it with Jerry last week, that endurance lifestyle is a thing. And we're seeing this merger of, people are consuming stuff from the endurance into the lifestyles now.
It is. Look, you can't blame them. They've smashed it. It's massive. And if people in the lifestyle world, it's funny, Lululemon's gone kind of more lifestyle coming to ultra, and Hoka's going ultra across to lifestyle. Hey, maybe we're not a niche little sport anymore. Maybe we're actually having some effect on society.
Most likely. Well, a big change would also be if trail running would be considered an Olympic discipline. So there is this rather, I'm not sure how important it is, but a small campaign coming up from the Brits where they are collecting signatures and making campaign to include trail running into the 2032 Olympics, which are, I think, scheduled to be in Brisbane, Australia. This is all supported by the other big emerging brand, Mattel, who is also in outdoor sports. They are British people running from UK to Paris to raise awareness for this sport to be included in 2032.
It is not going to surprise you, Marcus, that my thought on trail running in the Olympics involves Lazarus Lake. It's crazy to think. Do I think trail running comes to the Olympics? Possibly. And in what form? For people outside ultra, they just think ultra is like long running. We know there's so many disciplines: vertical Ks, 50 Ks, 100 miles, 6-day racing, 24-hour racing. Like that's going to be the challenge. Like what ultra? If trail or ultra, I know trail and ultra is used interchangeably. I don't think just a trail race, because that's cross country, right? I think if we get to the Olympics, it has to be a longer trail, like ultra. And with the capability of streaming today, we could probably do a great job to show a long race. But here's my thought, Marcus. It has to be backyard. Has to be. You know why? Because it's a whole week. By that time, Sam Harvey wants to go a week, right? Can you imagine, as all the events are ongoing, people can just tune in and watch. It's gladiator. This is gladiator stuff. Anybody can understand it. People might not understand long distance trail racing. It's on all the time. And every hour, just before the long jump or the high jump or the wrestling or the whatever, you flip to the, 3 days in, 12 competitors left. Can you imagine in the Olympics, you got down to just 2 people in backyard at 100 hours, and those 2 punched it out for another 40 hours. Can you imagine the power that would have? People would be tuning in. They're like, what? They're like, yeah, these guys. And one of them needs to stop. Backyard is the Olympic sport of choice in ultra for me, because the social media impact of it would be outlandish.
Interesting. I find also interesting how it still seems that Olympics, or being in the Olympics, is the pinnacle of a sport. That surprised me a bit, because I know it's a huge business, and the IOC is a very powerful organization. But yeah, interesting that there's interest now to push it even to the Olympics.
Well, I'd rather trail running going to the Olympics than the enhanced games. That's for sure.
Fair enough. I do think, a quick little side note here, that in the press release, you can also see, however, that the marketing manager of Merrell was commenting on this effort. So, if a marketing manager is commenting, you know why they're doing it. It is good press, good PR for Merrell, the company. But so far, good effort. 2024, another 8 years to go. Let's see if this happens or not. But yeah, it's just, at least it gets a press out, gets a word out, right? Staying with the British, we had other great news from London, where another incredible number coming our way. And this is really hard to believe for me, to be honest. 840,000 people applied for the ballot for the 2025 London Marathon. That is such an intense increase. This year was only 578,000, and now it's 840,000. Like almost 1 million people applied for the marathon next year. You sent this to me, and I had to Google it to really make sure it's real.
It's mind-blowing. Like it is. We, Marcus, are obviously in the middle of running, and we're always excited about it. We talk about it, and you run a running nutrition company, and I run, and we think everybody loves running. Everybody loves running. Everybody does love running. Like that number, let's round it up to 1 million. It went from 570,000 to 840. Next year it will be 1 million. Let's just say it as it is. There's 50,000 slots. Only 1 in 20 is going to get in. When they started the New York Marathon, the London Marathon, people were like in the 80s, we're not closing roads for a day in a city for some people to jog. Used to be called jogging, that horrible word, right? Not today. At some point, I'd love to dig into the difference between jogging and running and the emotions because if somebody says, see, Marcus, are you a runner or a jogger?
Mm.
You're a runner, right? There's that. And when marathon took people who were jogging to running, this is amazing. This shows that, we are a running, but also a business. We think about business of running. Man, if you can't sell those 857,000 people something, I don't know what's happening. It's incredible.
And I do agree. I think that we in this show focus mostly on trail and ultra running, the crazy dudes and women. But of course, everything starts on the road. That's the easiest entry point into the sport. You don't have to go wild in nature doing your track or your little, neighborhood run, whether it's a park run or not. I think we don't cover that much, and there's a lot happening out there. And the Buddhist in me, which looks into yin and yang, then wonders if this is a huge trend to this one extreme, what does it mean on the flip side? Like, what are the downside of this? Like, anything that is too extreme will have a downside to it. I fundamentally believe in that. So, like, what can you see in that? Where can there be any downsides in the future or now? I don't know. If this continues to be so extreme, like marathon, like 42 kilometers on the road, if there are millions of people doing it, could you see any downsides of this?
As always, I say stuff that I have no real base in facts, but I just say it. I'm going to say people who run ultras and marathons start less wars, are less bad people, have a better soul. So I think it calms your mind. So I struggle to see a downside. What is a downside? Is it a fad? We've had fads in running before. In America, and there was running fads. It's a great question, Marcus. I'm struggling to think.
This might go a bit more on the spiritual side, but running essentially is a self-expression. It is part of, if you think of the Maslow pyramid of needs, and who have not considered looking into Maslow pyramid of needs, look it up. Maslow pyramid means the basic needs are, food, water, family, housing, and the more you move up the pyramid, the more you are in a better state of wealth. And essentially, the top part is something called self-actualization, and that's where it's more about you and who you are and your mental capacity and so on. So I do think that running, to a certain extent, is part of that top part of the pyramid, which usually comes together with is self-understanding, self-awareness, but also it's about more me, less about you. So one way of looking at it is to say the more people run, the more people care about themselves and not so much about others. If you really have things to do to take care of your family, your kids or your old people, you wouldn't have time to run. This is a big statement right now. I'm making really generalized statements here, but I can see if this fits into the trend of people less working, more me, more self-actualization, being more about who they are, being less in the system, so to speak, in this working class system that the government wants you to be in. So yeah, I think it's part of this decentralization we see happening, where people are caring more about who they are than about what they can give to necessarily the system, which I don't think is a bad thing. It's just, I think that's something that's just happening. So it might be a challenge for governments eventually to say, hey, you spend too much time running. What happened with your productivity,
Exactly. Well, and in that case, that's a great point. And I love you talk a lot about the you and the me, and you've talked about that in different cultures. One of the great things is running in a London marathon or a big city marathon. So running is inherently selfish. It's time for yourself to do something for yourself. But when you get out with 50,000 people, you feel that community. So to your point, I agree. Could it be taken to the logical extent that, oh my God, everybody's running and it's very selfish? But when you run in a big community like a London Marathon, New York Marathon, you feel part of a whole, and I don't know, maybe that balances out.
Yeah, I think, let me rephrase what I'm saying. Now I'm talking about it, I can think about it more. I think the traditional we is changing to a new we. Like the traditional we is me in society, like very stupid saying, but have kids, pay taxes, have a job, all good, right? That's kind of the old we. And the new we is like, I've got my passion, my hobbies. I'm forming a new community of whether it's runners or whether it's online gamers. I mean, I think we see new communities emerging. We talked about this with Jerry last week. We talked about this with other people already. So it's really more of I'm wondering what kind of governing structures, what kind of social structures will emerge out of these new communities. And there's some people living in Singapore who call this new network states, right? So there's a idea of new states, new nations being formed around passions and hobbies. And running, I think, if you think about a state, it's a huge nation already. Like if 1 million people come together, massive, or even 50,000, that's already a very, very clearly self-governing body that, you can take it further into new kind of states. It's interesting to see how that will evolve into a new we. Because I do think people are herd animals, and I do think we want to mingle with other people. And the old mingling was centered around optimizing for resources like food and education and houses. Now we're optimizing for more the, like understanding of each other and the passion for each other. So I think there's something new, a new we coming.
And I like your thoughts around that community stuff. It's good.
Thank you. Alrighty, let's wrap this up. Episode 16 is pretty much done. Of course, we are all waiting now for your drop, Ned. I have not had the chance to read it. You are tending to send them last minute. That was exciting for me. So I'm sitting on hot coals, how we say in Germany. And I am giving the mic to you.
Thank you, sir. I mentioned that I was 57. I have this relentless belief that if I keep running, I'll never get old. So I thought I'd write a little, is it a poem? I don't even know what it is. I just put some words down. This one is called Not Old Ever. Not old ever. It's a state of mind. You choose, not the clock, not the calendar, not how old you actually are. You, in your mind, decide how old you are. Me, I get younger every year. That's what I tell myself. My dreams and goals get bigger, not smaller. We have been conditioned by society to slow down and sit down as we get older. You can do that, but why? Not me. I was 57 the other day, so I ran 57K. Next year I'm 58. I will run 58K. I will do that every birthday until I am 100. Can I? You can. You could. You should. You just have to change your mindset. Remember when you were a kid and you saw old people in the park? They were shuffling along as you tore around the playground, running, leaping, screaming, swinging. And you wondered, why did they get old? How did that happen? That's not happening to me. And that choice is still there for you, because running is your playground. Every day you run and play in it, you get younger. Did you see Jeannie Rice the other day? She's 75 years old. She ran a marathon in 3 hours, 30 minutes. She beat all the 75-year-old men. She beamed with smiles as she crossed the line. She most certainly didn't run that marathon with her body. That was a mindset that refuses to be told how old she is. So here's my advice. If you are young, take a snapshot of your young mindset. Hang on to it. If you're old, go for a run, then another one, then a crazy run, then set a goal, like running your age in Ks every year, or whatever, it doesn't matter. But a goal that's not conformed by society or by your age. Don't settle for getting old. We are the wild ones, the young ones, forever, running wild. Or you could sit in your seat and let time do its thing. It's up to you. I'm running 100 miles to the start of a 5K race this weekend. Why? Because it keeps me young. See you out there. Ned.
Thank you, Ned. As usual. Chilling.
I appreciate it. I really do. Of course I'm getting older, but that's not the point. It's the acceptance. Of course, every piece of logic screams that I can't run 100K at 100. But as I wrote in a little LinkedIn post, if you had to put your money on who is going to be the dude to run 100K when they're 100, you're putting your money on the dude who's trying. So try. And it'll be more fun. All right, let's wrap it up.
Thanks so much. There was another episode of the One More K podcast. Thanks for listening. Follow us on Twitter, Instagram, even LinkedIn if you like. And subscribe to our newsletter to hear the latest from Ned and us. Have a good week, and we can't wait to see you next week.